deep to left center field. Back it goes and gone. The 0-2 pitch. Hey, struck him out swinging at 101. Swinging a drive, left field and deep. Back it goes and gone. And the Twins walk it off again.
It is that time. Cory Provus joins us each and every Friday at 9:35. His appearance is brought to us by Welton's Tire Service. We appreciate their sponsorship of the show. Cory in Milwaukee as the Twins get set to open up a weekend 3-game series with the Brewers. You've got the trusty Twins media guide there. Every stat you need, right? I just saw you looking at that before we came on the air.
Yeah.
There it is.
So this, one of my, this is great. So I really appreciate, because not many teams still make these.
Right.
You know, these you don't, and I am a huge champion of please make them, because they are. I use it and I read it all the time. But one of my favorite sections is they separate opponents, and so with a team like Milwaukee, so I'm working on my scorecard right now and getting into some Chad Patrick information. The start of the Twins are going to see tonight, but I like looking at. I knew that we didn't win the season series with Milwaukee last year, but so I go to the Brewers page here, and it kind of gives the year-to-year results. And then I wanted to see, I know we went 1-3, but when was the last time that we won a series in Milwaukee? And so I just looked, and it was 2021. So, so I have this with me, and just like having little nuggets down to throw out there during the telecast.
How about the fact they listened to you and I and put the series on the weekend, huh? Let's go.
I mean, I love that baseball did this. I mean, thank you. This is great.
Yeah.
Great matchups all across the game this weekend, and their weekend series. Yes. Bravo. Well done. I like that it's later in the year, too. For some, school's out, some not so much, but still, it's a weekend. You can get there. And then the Brewers come to Target Field, a weekend series in June.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. So I'm a big fan of this change.
All right, let's start with the elephant in the room of what happened in the third inning yesterday. And watching your broadcast yesterday, and I could hear you yell, "Look out, guys!" And it was nasty. Cory, we know any update yet on Byron and Correa?
Well, watching it live, I didn't think it was as bad. And then when I saw the replay, then I was able to, I think we all were, piece together why both guys were down. Because watching it live, I knew there was contact, but I couldn't tell if it was that impactful. But yeah, I mean, Byron's jaw, I'm surprised he didn't break his jaw.
Yeah.
Jaw, full steam, running in, back of Correa's shoulder. And then their heads did also make contact. And then Correa especially, you saw this awful whiplash with his head. So, yeah, they were both down. And I don't have an update. And you know, it looked like, just seeing Byron, from what I heard in the clubhouse, he was moving around okay, better than Correa was post-game. So I'd be shocked. I mean, you know, Byron also has a history of migraine.
Right, we talked about that.
The Twins had that series in Puerto Rico. When was that? In 2016, I think it was. And Byron did not play because of migraines that just kind of popped up, and that's what kept him out of playing against Cleveland during that series in San Juan. And I don't know if that's what kind of impacted him after that collision or not yesterday. So he's had history of concussions, head injuries, and migraines. So I'd be surprised if we see either one, play this first game tonight.
That was my first thought, too, was when the concussion thing that I think Audra Martin reported during the game. Like, well, Byron's already had this. And you obviously you covered football forever as well, Cory, that anytime it happens, you're prevalent to happen again. That was the first thing I thought of with Byron's injury.
Yeah, I was surprised. And look, he finished the inning.
Yeah.
But then, and this is not knocking the medical staff. I mean, Byron checked out. They ran through that initial protocol that they do, but then we made sure to follow him in the dugout, and then we saw during the commercial break that he was walking down the steps with the head trainer Nick Paparesta, and at that point we knew that he was not going to come back into the game. So yeah, yesterday was a winning day for the team, but yeah, lost some key guys despite that win.
On that play, and I don't know if you and LaTroy talked about this on the broadcast, at least I was taught when I was playing that the outfielder always has priority on that because they're running forward rather than the infielder. Can you go through that a little bit on whose ball really it should be or is?
I mean, it's the center fielder's ball, but you have two alpha males. You
Yeah.
have two alpha
Right.
males, two guys that have platinum on their gloves, that believe every ball that they can get,
Is theirs.
they want to get. And so, in hindsight, yeah, you can look back at it and say, why is Correa out there so far? Because he's been out there before. He's made that play countless times, and I couldn't tell you if it felt like the wind was blowing more out than it was in yesterday. But because of that, was Buxton playing deeper, and was there more ground to cover around a shallow fly ball? So is that why Correa went out? I just think it was just bad luck. It happens. I'm surprised it doesn't happen more in our game, right? And two guys that are really good at what they do, and it says so on their gloves.
Yeah.
And just two guys wanted to make a play, and sadly they collided.
And it takes away from what was another dynamite pitching effort from Chris Paddock, which is a guy that you and I talked about a month ago. That what's his tenure on the Twins going to be like if he can't keep pitching better, if he doesn't start pitching better? And he's been brilliant the last two times out.
Awesome. The Giants start last week was incredible, flirting with perfection in that one. And then he had the look about him, and I'm going to dig into this a bit more today when I get to the park. So it comes out yesterday, Dom, pitch count 89, 7 scoreless innings. He didn't look like he wanted to come out of that game. He's never thrown a complete game. And I'm going to try to find more intel about that today. I think the Orioles had the mid to the bottom part of their lineup coming up. So I get it. It was a 4-run game at that point. Varland, Duran, you're good to go. Bullpen's been great, but man, for Paddock, I'm sure he was hoping to get that chance to go back out. And I think for Paddock, there's so much motivation because he's an impending free agent. But also, what's the talk about the Twin staff, right? There's the top 3, and then there's the other 2. I think Paddock wants to be, hey, put me in with that group, that trio of Pablo, Joe Ryan, and Bailey Ober. I don't want it to be those 3 and then a separate tier. I want to be in that party as well. And he's been pitching like it, and give him credit. The work he put in this winter, he never stopped throwing for the first time in his career. And he's been great. And the starting pitching has been, the best in baseball for the last 35 games.
They did make a change in their starting rotation with Simeon Woods Richardson being sent back to St. Paul. Was that a eye-opening move, or how did you take that from what happened after Wednesday's doubleheader?
I think it was 2 parts. I think in terms of the doubleheader and needing another starter, I think that played a part, but I also think performance was a part of it as well. And for Sim, he's now given up 8 home runs, and 7 of the 8 are solo. At some point, that's going to catch up to you, and it did with Cedric Mullins hitting the grand slam. And, there are expected numbers in this game, and those are trends that players look at. Don't think it's just me and you and staff. Players look at that stuff too, the quality of contact, and the expected numbers against Sim were not favorable. And just inability to throw strikes and not striking out too many hitters. I just think it came to a head where, look, we've got some guys, and the performance, the ERA is over 5. He's been getting hit hard. He's not going deep into games. Now, is all that his fault? Some of that you can say, well, are they treating him like they did Joe Ryan and Bailey Ober 3 or 4 years ago? The answer is probably yes. And over time, those guys have earned the right to pitch deeper into games. Sim isn't there yet. Now, what Sim can't do, and I don't think he will, he just can't go down to St. Paul and be like, all right, next time they need a guy, it's going to be me. Let me tell you something. There's guys down there, and we're going to find out here, because I think Zebby is supposed to pitch tonight for the Saints. And Dom, I haven't seen it yet, if he's still listed as the starter for St. Paul. If he's not, then that's our sign that Zebby's going to pitch here on Sunday. And that means Festa stays in St. Paul. But so even with Zebby, if that is the move, if he's up here with Festa and Andrew Morris and Marco Raya, there are guys there. And Corey Lewis, there are guys there that he just can't, sit back and be like, all right, well, I'll get my turn again. He's going to have to still pitch, because I'm not saying he's going to get lapped, but there's depth in St. Paul, Dom, that the Twins haven't had in a long time.
Email comes in to ask you about Harrison Bader and Ty France. I know France got in the game yesterday, but any worry on what happened to them on Wednesday's games?
Yeah, I think France was only coming in an emergency role, and they were in an
Yeah.
emergency role.
Yeah.
I mean, the Twins were running out of players. Heck, they were running out of trainers. We were joking on the plane last night that the massage therapist, Kelly, she might have had to go out there and take a look at a guy if he was down again. Man, but we saw that training staff, Nick and Jason and Massa, they got way too much TV time during the series in Baltimore. But yeah, I'm curious if Bader, because he was clearly down yesterday, he made it seem like it wasn't a big deal. Now, I did see Ty in the clubhouse before the game yesterday. He wasn't walking gingerly. He wasn't wearing a boot. He didn't have his foot wrapped or anything like that. So he was walking fine. My concern was, is the spot the same area where he fractured his heel last year? Because that changed his whole season. When he fouled that pitch off of his heel in June last year, that's when everything went south. So that was my concern. And the answer that I got yesterday is no, but he does have a hot spot in his foot from a previous injury when he was stepping and reaching for a base and his foot landed awkwardly. And then the ball that he hit on Tuesday hit that hot spot. So that's kind of what has led him to be down for a couple of days. So we'll see. But, I keep checking my email to see if there's any roster move coming. But the Twins right now, they've got a pretty thin bench.
Any update on Matt Wallner?
He was rounding the bases. So he was picking up his running progression on the last homestand. But he's still a ways away.
Okay.
I think this is going to be more of a 2-month thing than I think anything else. So I've lost track now when it was, but it was clearly in April. So I still think he's maybe a month into it, right?
Yep.
Maybe a month.
It was April 17th is when he went
April
on.
17th. Yeah. So I think he's on that 6 to 8 week time frame. So in the meantime, though, Willie Castro's played a great corner outfield, and where would they be without him right now? He's looking like that all-star that he was last year. Again, Willie's a free agent end of the year, so this is a big year for him. But he's come up with some great moments. It's coming off the IL.
I'll add as well before we go to break, where would they be without Kobe Clemens right now either?
Yeah.
I mean, he's bailed them out too.
I mean, the Twins did not make a lot of sexy moves this winter, but the free agent moves they made, Danny Coulomb, Harrison Bader, Ty France, those have panned out beautifully. And then I think Jonah Bride, I think he's played a great third base, and Cody Clemens. Man, I hope Roger's in attendance more often, because when Dad is there, this guy's hitting bombs that are turning games around late in these games. And I don't know if Roger and Cody said to Audrey, he said that it's more my mom than my dad. So I think they laughed that off as a family. But yeah, they these little moves that they've made, they didn't sound big, but yeah, give the front office credit, the coaching staff credit, the players, of course, they get the utmost credit. It's worked out really well.
We'll break. We come back. We'll preview the series with the Brewers and look at the super tough AL Central, because it's playing out. The Twins are on this win streak and really haven't gained any ground. Much more with Cory Provus. We come back and wrap up our first hour of Hot Mic on a Friday morning right after this. Here on this Friday morning, Cory Provus joining us. His appearance is brought to us by Welton's Tire Service. Twins and Brewers coming up tonight, 7 o'clock in Milwaukee. I know anytime that you go back to Milwaukee, it's an emotional deal. Certainly will be, obviously, tonight for the first time being back since the late, great Bob Uecker passed away. And we were just visiting off air. You got something planned for the broadcast tonight.
Yeah, I'm very appreciative that I asked if I could start the show tonight with just kind of thank you and a tribute for my guy. And I'm going to do my best not to lose it, but I'm gonna wear this tonight on my jacket. This was kind of what I was given when I missed that game against the White Sox. I was invited to the celebration of life for him, so I'm gonna spend some time just kind of thanking him. And this was a game. This was a series that I loved. Every year when the schedule came out, this was always the first one that I would go to because it was you stopped traveling years ago, so it was my one chance to kind of see him and. So we talked earlier about going to 3 games. It always felt like it was too fast. These 2-game trips that we had here, I just went too fast. So I just, seeing him was always a highlight of my year. And, being back here and walking, I'm going to go early today because I just want to make sure that I'm in a good state of mind and see how I'm doing. It's gonna be tough, but I knew it would happen. And I'm going to do my best to keep it together and honor my guy.
That's going to be awesome. And I'm glad that they're letting you do that tonight. We'll look forward to seeing that coming up on the broadcast. We mentioned this earlier that it's quote unquote rivalry weekend, which I was intrigued to see for some of the teams that don't have a natural rival, who they be matching, like Mariners Padres isn't necessarily a rivalry, but I appreciate the sentiment that they're doing this, that they're going to let these games happen on a weekend.
That's my favorite one. And you know what they're playing for? They have a trophy.
I didn't know. No.
The Mariners and Padres are playing for the Eddie Vedder Cup. I think that's
awesome. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, Eddie, I'm a big Pearl Jam fan.
Yes.
Eddie from Chicago, but obviously Pearl Jam became famous in Seattle.
Yeah.
That's where the band got together. But Eddie was surfing in San Diego when the drummer for the band at the time, named Jack Irons, handed a cassette tape of these 4 or 5 songs that these guys from Seattle put together. They were looking for a singer. And some of the, Mike McCready and Jeff Amon, they knew Jack Irons, and they connected Jack to Eddie.
Wow.
So Eddie came up from San Diego and sang with the band, and the rest is history in 1990 or 91. And so they are playing for the Eddie Vedder Cup.
That's awesome.
Which is pretty awesome.
Give us the lowdown, what you know on the Brewers. And I mean, we know typically really solid club, where they're at so far in 2025.
They've been hit hard by injury. The starting staff has been decimated by injury. They were hoping to get Brandon Woodruff back for this series, but that's not going to happen. He's got coming back from a shoulder injury. Now he's got a bad ankle. But so their offense has been inconsistent. They did put up 9 runs on Wednesday in Cleveland to at least salvage 1 in that series. They're 2 games under 500, but what they do have is speed. They lead all of baseball in stolen bases. They stole 6 bases, not in a game, in an inning earlier this year. So this is going to be a focal point all weekend long. There is just a wealth of speed. They're just not relying on home runs because they haven't gotten a ton of home runs from Yelich and Hoskins and Contreras and Churio, but they're going to be moving. They're going to be up and down the bases, and it just can't put all the blame and the load on Jeffers and Vasquez. Pitchers, especially the bullpen guys, have to just be ready to mix things up, their timing, their moves, their looks, because so many of these Milwaukee guys are going to be taking 90 feet when possible.
Crazy thing when you win 11 in a row and don't move in the standings. I mean, look at the last 10 games. The Tigers are 8-2, Guardians are 6-4, Royals are 6-4. We talked about it when we first started this year that the Central is going to be good. Obviously, they may have 3 teams make the playoffs last year, but you kind of shake your head, Corey, like they can't make it up any ground.
Yeah, right now there would be 4 playoff teams from the division. If I saw it right last night, that the Twins would have the 3rd and final wild card spot, that you'd have those 4 teams all in the playoffs. And you just can't say, oh, they're beating the White Sox. They're beating the White. If you're going to use that argument, then you better do the same in the West for Colorado.
Yeah, right.
And which doesn't come up, right? That doesn't come up. They just say, Ohtani's great. He is. 2 homers yesterday. The Giants are good. Padres are good. But you can't just use that argument that over the White Sox. The Central is good. The Tigers have an awesome team. The Royals pitching is fantastic. Cleveland, somehow, some way, even though their offense doesn't knock your socks off, they find a way. They're really good in close games, as we have seen. And the Twins have turned their season around. They're doing it in a variety of ways. The pitching, the hitting's improved. And the bullpen right now is the best in baseball. Those were the projections about the Twins pen entering the year. And they've been performing in that way now here for a while. So, yeah, kudos to the division, because this is the time, that saying that you can't win the division in April, you can lose it. This is a year where you had to keep up.
Right.
Because you look at how well this division is playing. I don't think the Tigers are going to maintain this pace, but still, right now, they're the best team in the American League by far.
I was going to leave you with that. Is this sustainable for the whole division, you think, going forward?
No, because you're going to start playing each other. I mean, it's just it's going to come back, because I haven't studied it that much. I don't think that there's been many divisional games between these teams lately, right? I mean, the Twins have a big homestand next week. Seeing the Royals and seeing the Guardians on the upcoming homestand, that's significant. But yeah, so this will eventually even itself out to a point. But in the meantime, who's been the key for the Tigers has been Javi Baez.
Yeah,
Javi Baez,
really
that
good.
contract has been a disaster, but man, the message to him was, we need you to play multiple positions. And he didn't mope, he didn't pout, said fine. And he's hitting walk-off bombs, good defense, come up with big swings. And H.A. Hinch is pressing all the right buttons right now. Scooble's going to win another Cy Young. It's a great team. It's a really good team. And then, I love Bobby Witt Jr. I mean, watching Bobby Witt, I love that he's at Target Field next week. And hopefully Byron and Correa, if they're down a couple of days, fine. But then only a couple of days if it's that, because then they'll need all their horses next week.
I have a sore spot for Javi Baez because the Mets gave up Pete Crow Armstrong for 2 months
PCA,
for 2 months of Javi Baez, and that didn't really work out well.
Yeah, that trade is doing gangbusters right now for the Cubs. He's awesome.
Really
he's one
good.
of the most exciting players in the game.
Every time I see him do something, like, man, he could have just great.
And how about his mom?
Right.
His mom is Wally Hollins, or I forgot the kid's name. Billy is Billy's mom.
Yes.
In Little Big League.
I didn't know that either.
Connection.
Wild. Have a great call tonight, bud. Thanks for doing this as always. We'll see you next Friday, okay?
All right, Dom. Take care, bud.
Cory Provus joins us each and every Friday. His appearance is brought to us by Welton's Tire Service. The Twins and the Brewers coming up tonight on Twins.tv. Tomorrow night's game is a Fox game. That's on National Fox. And then Sunday they're back for the matinee in Milwaukee to wrap up the weekend. We'll break. We come back. We'll start our second hour. You're going to meet one of the newest Bison transfers coming in. This one from James Madison. Antoine Booth. That's coming up. We start hour 2 of Hot Mic right after this.